The lines are locked. 4, match day is near. 3, the picks are clear. 2, the picks are in. 1, let the show begin. Game on! It's that time again. Game on! Kicks and Picks is back again. Game on! Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Game on! The guys are here and ready to go. Game on!
Welcome back to Kicks and Picks podcast. As you can see here on the screen, just Scotty and I with you tonight. Some might wonder if Nick is hiding from last weekend's results, especially MLS. Not a great weekend for us. He might be easy. He's either hiding from that, Scotty, or he's still celebrating Lazio's victory over Milan. I don't know which it is.
Could be both.
Yeah.
Why not both?
I mean, it's celebrating or hiding from the fact that he's trashed the side all year and they beat Milan. So, sounds about right for those teams, though. Just show up when it doesn't matter for Lazio, and then my club just can't beat anybody decent. But we're going to lead with the Champions League because that's way more important than anything the Roman clubs are doing in Serie A this year. This one we titled Premier League Nightmare because, Scotty, I mean, we talked about it heading into the round of 16. 6 Premier League clubs qualified, right? Usually leagues don't get 6, but because you had the Europa League winners last year, you had that 5th bonus spot that UEFA now gives to the top 2 leagues and coefficient. They had 6 and they performed really well in the league phase. We talked about that, a couple episodes ago. And then now you get 4 teams that just got absolutely run off the pitch. City, somewhat surprisingly, to Madrid on a 6-1 aggregate, I believe it was. You had Barcelona just handle Newcastle after it was a 2-2, and it was looking like it was going to be very competitive, and got a goal before halftime and then just ran away with it, 7-2 in the second half, scored a touchdown. Liverpool did their job, Arsenal did their job, and then it was also Spurs out to Atleti. Won today's leg, but the fixture was already kind of done and dusted heading into it. And then who was the 6th one? I'm forgetting off the top of my head. What's lost? PSG beat Chelsea.
Chelsea got smoked by PSG.
That was the other one, right? Yeah, that was the other one. They got smoked by PSG. So 4 of the 6, not only did they get eliminated, they got eliminated pretty emphatically by the 3 La Liga clubs and PSG. So just what went wrong here? I mean, were they a little overperforming coming in?
My hot take is I don't think anything really went wrong. I mean, none of those were favorites coming in besides maybe City. Like City, Real Madrid was the closest, but yeah, I mean PSG should be heavily favored over Chelsea, and then you have Tottenham, who's a legitimate relegation candidate for the Premier League. The fact that they're even getting an automatic bye into this spot to begin with was pretty insane, given their performances this season. So like them getting eliminated by Atletico, I think that's largely expected. And then Newcastle have been largely mid-table. They've lost, they're the main striker that got them into the Champions League in the first place. Haven't really been able to replace him with Voltmata. So I mean, they were a decent story, but yeah, under no circumstances should a mid-table team from the Premier League be beating the first place team in La Liga. So I don't know that anything went wrong. I just think, you had 6 teams in the quarterfinals or round of 16, wherever we were. And now they have 2 teams left. The only other league that has more is La Liga. I think it's just, water found its level. The fact that they had 6 to begin with was, an outlier, like you mentioned. And I think the only real disappointment that you could maybe argue would be City getting smoked by Madrid. But how often have we said, like, anytime you get Real Madrid in the Champions League, you take a money line because they're a different squad when they perform in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, Madrid obviously not having their best season, especially in recent weeks. We kind of were like, oh, they're looking a little shaky heading into that. City not having their best season, but still second in the Premier League and, the biggest threat to Arsenal for most of the year. And yeah, I mean, the red card obviously conditions the match this past week to kind of doom them to a 6-1 aggregate loss, but losing 3-0 in Madrid was very surprising. Did not expect that at all to get cut out and kind of just run off the pitch.
The damage was done in the
Yeah.
first leg, 100%.
Yeah,
It's
and a lot
you
of these
don't really want to be trying to
fixtures.
chase a 3-0 lead. So the red card sealed it off, but they're already cooked.
Yeah, and I think all of them were down by I think 2 to 3 goals heading into the second leg, which makes it tough. Except for Newcastle, who I was able to get the 1-1 draw at home. They were the only ones that were really in it. Atleti, no surprise that they beat Spurs. You're right. I mean, Spurs. We talked about it. They're in serious, not relegation danger, but they're on the cusp of it. Right. They're a point above the relegation zone, which is insane.
No, they
Tudor
are.
celebrated that penalty today and was asking for a second moments later, even with the tie kind of out of it, because he's like, he needed something for his guys to kind of save his own job probably for another week, and kind of maybe buoy the hopes of his players of just surviving the Premier League season at this rate. So yeah, not big surprises. I mean, the other one, I guess not a huge surprise because of the name recognition of the teams, but the way it played out, Bodo Glimt, we just had them to score a goal yesterday, parlayed with Real Madrid as our play of the day, and they got absolutely throttled by Sporting in Lisbon. Gave up 3 in regular time to go to extra time. They gave up 2 more in extra time to lose 5-0 on the day, 5-3 in aggregate. I mean, Bodo was always a great story. And, they were underdogs heading into this fixture, but after they won the first leg, I did not expect them to blow a 3-0 lead after the way they performed at the San Siro in recent weeks.
No, their run has been really characterized by their offense. They've been scoring multiple goals in like the majority of their games in the Champions League this year. And I think this is a case where they're on the road, they have a 3-0 lead. I think they probably played it more conservatively than they should have. They kind of went outside their DNA, and it kind of bit them in the end. Once you give up 1 goal on the road when you're trying to, conserve a lead, it just begins to roll downhill from there. You lose all the momentum, and at that point, it's really hard to get things back on track.
Yeah, hostile environment. I think the same thing could have happened in Milan if Inter had capitalized early in that match, because they kind of took the same approach, and I thought they would have learned from it and not played ultra conservative. I didn't get to watch the match, but based on what I read and what the scoreline indicates, they did. And like you said, once you get that 1 goal, it kind of snowballs, and it can turn really quick. And no more away goal rule in these, so it went straight to, and it would have been 3-3 on an away goal anyway, but it went to extra time, and they gave 2 more, and it was just kind of like, wow, a lesson for them for future seasons in Champions League for sure. Certainly a club on the ascendancy, because they were, I think, second division within the last 10 years or so, I read. And they've been slowly climbing the European, ranks of going from Conference League to Europa League and now to Champions League. So good for them, but a tough way to go out for the Norwegian side.
And I feel like they're going to remain relatively intact. Sometimes, especially like with like the Dutch league, when you see like Ajax come through, those teams tend to like get picked apart a little bit. I don't know that Bodo Glimt is going to be kind of picked apart by any of these, upper level clubs. I think they'll be relatively intact going into next season. So we'll see. Hopefully they can continue the run.
Yeah, I mean, it speaks volumes to what Norwegian football is starting to do. Obviously, Holland is the spearhead of that from a national team level, but other players that are playing at big clubs now, like Sorloth and others, and the national team qualified very easily over Italy in their group. Not that Italy's been a beacon of their old elite selves anymore, but Norwegian football is on the rise, and it's interesting because I always when you watch these Olympic hockey tournaments, you're like, how is Norway not better? Like Sweden's good, Finland's good. Those Scandinavian sides are usually good in hockey, and now all of a sudden they're kind of on the ascendancy in, football, and it's certainly a new side to keep an eye on because they're producing talent. And one thing I complimented them for when they beat Inter was that they're a mostly Norwegian side. They have a lot of domestic players, and I think that is something that maybe some of the bigger teams in the bigger leagues forget about. Last week Nick and I talked about Como in the Como Roma fixture coming up that just happened this weekend, and Como is kind of on the rise. And then I saw a graphic this past week that they've literally played Italian-born players, Italian guys who are eligible for Team Italy,
1 minute
total minute the whole season. It's Eduardo Goldeniga, who's like, I think probably like in his 30s by now, been around a little bit. Like, that's not doing anything for Italian football. So as great as Como's story is, coming up from the second division, picturesque stadium, Fabregas has his guys playing well, nice football. Nico Paz is a great, prospect. Guys like that are good for the league, right? Obviously, when you get those hot shots, prospects and big names coming through. But when you're playing guys that are not really elevating the league or the league's profile, and then you're sacrificing domestic players when your national team has been struggling to qualify for a World Cup now, what could be 3 in a row. That is, I think, more of a problem for Italian football. And we see it in the Champions League with the big clubs. Like, the league has been very wide open this year for the most part because nobody's really that great. We've seen the race for the Champions League. And then, all but Atalanta get eliminated prior to today or this round. And then Atalanta get absolutely run off the pitch in 2 legs by Bayern. And, Bayern is one of the best teams in Europe, no doubt about it. But, I mean, they could not compete with them after beating Dortmund. So that just kind of shows the gulf in quality of the top sides against some of these Italian sides. Disappointing results for Juve and Inter the last round. And, Nick's not here to talk about it, but, just from you follow the Premier League closer, but just from an outsider perspective, I mean, that's not a good look for Serie A.
No, and we were kind of talking about it in the pre-show, with some of the new rules, multiple leagues now can get 5 spots. That's always good for financial, instances. It's also good for just getting the extra exposure to the league. Italy was, I think, right up in the running for that second spot with, I think, Germany to get the 5th Champions League qualification spot. And with this result, it's all but sealed them out, and they'll be getting top 4 now. And so I don't know at this point if that's more likely to impact like a Juve, or I think Roma's pretty safe at this point, right? They're
after the last 2 weeks now, it's Como in 4th, Juve 5th, Roma 6th. So Como's kind
Como
of
in 4th now.
Yeah, they're in control of their own destiny the rest of the way.
So yeah, it's bigger losers here are than like maybe Juve and Roma if Como can kind of continue that form, because one of those teams could have qualified. Obviously, Juve being a big name, Roma, no slight to them either. Like they've had success in Europe recently. So that's really the tough part is the lack of performance this season is going to cost some teams next year.
Yeah, and Roma's still alive in Europa League at least until tomorrow, depending on what happens against Bologna head to head. So there'll be one Serie A team left there, and if Roma is the team, they do have a path to Champions League to get a 5th spot that way too. We saw it happen with Chelsea this year for the Premier League to get that 6th spot. So, but Roma's form has dipped, and that's a problem when even if they beat Bologna, I believe Villa would be their next opponent in the bracket. So, not a good look for Serie A to get a 5th spot, an outside chance through Europa League. But yeah, I mean, performance not very good. So, I mean, with the teams that are left, Scotty, let's talk about these 4 head-to-heads we have in the quarterfinals, what you see here in the odds, if they're, accurately priced maybe from your opinion. And then we can talk about the futures and who's, still favored or whatnot in terms of the book. So we've got Real Madrid and Bayern. That's a heavyweight showdown, to the most successful clubs in Champions League history going head-to-head. You've got Real Madrid plus 120 to qualify, Bayern minus 165. Then we've got Barcelona minus 285 head-to-head against fellow La Liga side Atlético plus 195. That one's interesting to me because we can talk about how their head-to-heads have gone so far this year. PSG playing your Liverpool minus 140, Liverpool even money to advance. And then you've got Sporting plus 390 against Arsenal, who's minus 700 to advance. The biggest favorite, of course, in terms of the next round to qualify for the semifinals.
Yeah, a lot of good matchups, honestly. I mean, all but the Arsenal and Sporting one, I think, have interesting storylines. PSG, Liverpool, obviously a repeat or rematch of last year where PSG went on to win Champions League. And I think that, double or home and home or home and away versus Liverpool kind of kickstarted it. Bayern versus Real, like 2 of the biggest names in global in the sport globally. Real maybe on a little bit of a down year in at least domestic. I think that's why you're seeing the odds shift ever so slightly towards the direction of Bayern. Barca and Atleti, top 3 against each other. I think that one's weirdly the one that has the most potential for an upset with, maybe Atleti sneaking through. And then, got to assume Arsenal are going to get through versus Lisbon. Obviously, the heaviest favorite among the bunch, and you'd expect them to basically be not sleepwalking to the semifinals, but have a very, very easy path, easier than they probably could have hoped for at the beginning of the season, and really sets them up well for a really strong end of the season. Depending, obviously, like domestic league now looks almost all but wrapped up for them. they have a domestic cup opportunity on Sunday that we might get to at the end of the show. So yeah, I think it's all very interesting. My picks, I think PSG get through against Liverpool. I think Liverpool's form this season has just been a step and a half below where it's been in the previous years. So I don't expect PSG to struggle there. I do like Bayern over Real. I know that kind of goes against what we normally say. Real always in Europe, always strong, always a tough out. But I think Bayern just has a little bit too much in the squad this year that it'll give Real a real trouble. I think we'll have to go Atleti. I think there's got to be an upset in here, and if I'm picking an upset, I think it's going to be Atleti over Barcelona, and then Arsenal over Lisbon.
Yeah, I think if there is an upset, I think that would be the one. I know Real Madrid is priced more like a team that could pull the upset, and so is Liverpool at their numbers. And either of them could. I just think Bayern is a better side this year than Real Madrid. I'd be surprised to see them do what they did to City again and get through another big side. Bayern's been almost unbeatable this year in the Bundesliga. Obviously, there's a little bit of a quality difference when you drop below Bayern this year, especially. But Atleti, when you think about how they've played Barcelona, they've played them 3 times already. 3-1 Barcelona win in La Liga back in December. But then when you go to the Copa del Rey, they met in the 2-legged, I guess it's semifinal. Atleti at home won 4-0. And the Barca in the reverse fixture won 3-0. Atleti survived and they advanced. Then they play again in La Liga on April 4th before they play these 2 fixtures on the 8th and the 14th. So Nick always talks about how hard it is to beat a team back-to-back or play a team back-to-back. So that'll be interesting because they play the weekend before the first leg. So that'll be an interesting little caveat there. That leg or that La Liga fixtures at the is in Madrid, and then Barca's got the first home leg, and then it goes back to Madrid for the second leg of the fixtures. They alternate home and away. I'm curious to see how Atleti comes out against them in the league. Because Barca did mount a pretty close to a comeback after the 4-0 whooping they got in the first leg of the Copa del Rey. But Atleti won't be afraid of them. This isn't a Barcelona side of the Pep years and those dominant years when Messi was there. I don't think they strike that kind of fear in anybody, especially not a team like Atleti who's played them plenty. Simeone knows them. He'll know how to kind of game plan for them. Obviously, them putting up 7 today is encouraging if you're a Barcelona fan because they haven't been as dominant in the Champions League this year in certain fixtures. But I think at plus 195, there's some legs to that for an upset if you're going to look for a price for a team to advance.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I think Simeone, it's not in his DNA to ever, back down from a challenge. I think he actually manages better in a 2-leg scenario versus over the course of a 38, 40 game season. So this is a perfect opportunity for him to kind of showcase that. And yeah, I think if Atleti can get some sort of lead in the first leg, and then they just kind of shithouse their way to a result, they become a very interesting storyline for that second match. Is Barca able to kind of overcome that? Does Atleti just shithouse for a full 90 minutes if they have the lead in the second leg? And can they pull off the upset? So I'm on board. I can see that happening for sure. It also would make sense for the way that Arsenal's draw went, where they basically got the easiest possible draw. If the only team that really would have challenged them would have been a Barcelona in the semifinals, but if it takes care of business, and it kind of makes their path to the finals all that easier. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens for them with the way their season.
Yeah, that's a great point. And if you are interested in Atleti, I mean, the only lines that are out so far are money line for the first leg, but they're plus 450 on the road, which means you're going to get them draw no bet or double chance at a pretty good price, where you get them double chance at around even money or so. You could be looking at, let's get a draw, get out of here, win some money. And if you have them, to advance, then you're in a pretty strong position with them going home. So definitely, if you believe in them,
Simeone would celebrate a draw as if he made it to the Champions League final.
100%. Yeah. If he gets a draw in that first leg, you can see him like 1-1. We're good. We're going to the Metropolitana and let's take care of business there and take our best shot at Barcelona. I can definitely see that. That's something we will definitely keep an eye on as we get closer and more lines come out. Just to wrap Champions League, Scotty, the futures now, this is what they look like heading into the quarterfinals. The bracket, like you said, Arsenal Lisbon winner plays the Barca Atleti winner. The PSG Liverpool winner plays the Bayern Real winner. So that affects the lines a little bit when you're taking futures because you have a different path. But Arsenal plus 230, Bayern plus 330, Barca plus 450, PSG plus 550, Real plus 700, Liverpool plus 900, Atleti plus 2,000, and Sporting plus 5,000. Anything that interests you there? I mean,
Yeah.
the big favorites.
Honestly, the number that I like the most is PSG plus 550. I think they get through Liverpool. Yeah, they face probably the winner of Real or Bayern, but I think that's probably the toughest two leg that they would have the whole way through. So I don't know. I think that's the best number. I mean, it seems like Arsenal's got a pretty good chance of making it to the final, so that's not terrible to take them now because you can always just hedge out of it if they make it to the final. But yeah, I think the number I like overall is PSG at plus 550.
Okay, yeah, I mean Arsenal too short for me, Bayern too short for me. We just talked about how we think Barcelona could go down. I'm not going to touch them at plus 450. I mean, the only other shot, if you want a long shot, I think if you think Atleti could beat Barcelona, maybe at plus 2,000, you could even hedge out in the semifinals. You might get some value there, and then or you can hedge a little bit in a way that you can leave that plus 2,000 open against an Arsenal and see if they can get the job done in a one-off final. You never know with Simeone. But yeah, I think you're right. I think PSG, in terms of the price at the path, is probably the most solid one. Although I think Bayern is probably, I think in some ways Bayern's the team to beat in this tournament at this point. They've got the domestic league pretty much wrapped up. They're strong.
Interesting.
They're going to have a pretty, and that's I think the advantage for Arsenal too, right? They're not going to have a lot in the league to play for as they get into the later stages because the league should be in pretty good standing for both of these clubs.
Do you like Vincent Kompany as a Champions League manager though? Like that's my concern. Is I think he would be the weakest manager left.
That could be, that could be an issue for them against a better manager. That is a good point. Like and in their talent level can mask certain things against certain clubs, especially domestically. I think that's a solid point. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
All right. You mentioned it. The League Cup is finals this weekend, which is why the Premier League schedule is a little bit shorter than usual. So why don't we jump over to that? It's Arsenal and City on Sunday, 12:30 Eastern time. So let me just pull up this here and we'll get into it. So in terms of money line, you've got Arsenal plus 125, City plus 195. City obviously come in licking their wounds a bit. To lift the trophy is minus 135 for Arsenal, plus 105 for City. So that protects you against extra time, penalty kicks, things like that. How do you feel about this match coming in? Do you think Arsenal just continue to kind of roll like they've rolled through the league? Do you think City here with Pep in a final is a dangerous proposition for them? John has a comment about Bayern. He goes from Burnley relegation to Champions League winner does sound insane, Scotty, for Kompany. So John's on board there.
Pep Guardiola Manchester City side in a final. Awesome, on board. But yeah, like I think this is an interesting one for Pep because we kind of talked a little bit about it 2 weeks ago with the way that the City team is performing and with Pep looking like he's going to be pretty close to not retirement, but at the end of his mission without any trophies. And they've got an uphill battle in the Champions League that we just covered. It seems like they're all but out of it in the Premier League. If they don't get a trophy in the EFL Cup here, their last bet is the FA Cup in May. So result at the end of the day on Sunday. But it's hard to kind of bet on this team that just really has been so woefully underperforming throughout every competition over the last 3 months.
Yeah.
We talked about with Martino that like Donnarumma has seemingly taken a bit of a drop off in recent weeks. Haaland hasn't been, I mean, he's been good, but hasn't been this like unstoppable force that we're kind of used to seeing from him. The midfield's been okay. I think it's been better in recent weeks, but it's just been a really like lackluster performance for a City team that we're used to being basically inhuman. So like I said, my heart tells me don't bet against a Pep Guardiola Man City team. But my head is just telling me that like Arsenal have just been so much better than them through all facets of the season that they should be the ones winning this game when it's all said and done.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. I think I would probably go to win the cup if I'm going to take something, which at minus 135 is not a terrible number on Arsenal. I just think City in recent weeks, I mean, they've dropped points in 4 out of 5. And when you include Champions League, they had that 2-2 against Forest, the 1-1 against West
Yeah.
Ham, the 2 losses over the 2 legs to Real Madrid. And Arsenal's just kind of kept chugging along. They had the what was it in Leverkusen was a 1-1, I believe. They
Hmm.
got the late goal, which hit a bet for us last week, but then they just took care of business yesterday. So I think they're just on a different level this year than the rest of the Premier League. Um, I know it pains Nick every time we have to talk about it, as like our number one Arsenal hater. But I think this is the year where they can win
Yeah,
multiple
and
trophies, and I
they
think
haven't
this
been
one's there
dominant
for them.
either. Like yeah, like they haven't been dominant either. Like some of these results they've been getting, they've been kind of getting in like the 11th hour, right? They just beat
Yeah,
Everton 2-0, but all of those goals are coming in the 90th minute. Like you said, they drew Leverkusen 1-1. And they got the result yesterday to advance. They beat Brighton 1-0 on a late goal. They beat Chelsea, a 10-man Chelsea by 1 goal. Like it's not like they've been just completely running through the competition. They've been dropping points here and there. It's just been that the City team that we're used to being, you know, uh, 2.5 points per game kind of form. Liverpool obviously taking a step back. I think the rest of the Premier League from like the mid-table down have been relatively softer this year. Uh, they've really just been doing just enough to kind of get to where they are now, and that's why I said like it's hard for me to like. It feels very much like a game where like Arsenal do just enough, to win the trophy, and City are in for just like another letdown.
yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the goal scorer lines. Obviously, the book's not expecting a ton of goals in probably a tight final. So that you get Holland at plus 160, Semenyo plus 220, Gyökeres plus 255, which is an interesting number for me because if he's starting as the striker in a match like this, plus 255 is a good number. Probably the most likely goal scorer for Arsenal. Obviously, they can spread it around a little bit, but you can get big numbers on a lot of players here. I don't know if there's anybody you like in particular. I'm looking at player shots. Holland for 2 shots is plus 150. I
What's
mean,
Gabriel at?
Gabriel Jesus for a shot is minus 210.
No. Gabriel.
Oh, the defender,
Yeah, no,
Gabriel.
center back Gabriel. Yes.
He is plus 225 for a shot. So if you're looking for a shot off of a set piece, a header, or something like that, he's a big
I
number.
don't hate that because you know that they're going to be scoring from set pieces. He's going to be the.
Yeah, and if you think he's the one that could pop it in, he's plus 950. I mean, that'd be kind of a lotto play, but he's got a huge number on him as a guy who could score off of a set piece.
Yeah, I don't mind taking either of those. Maybe a unit on shot, and then a little sprinkle on anytime goal score in case it goes in.
Yeah. The over under is pretty much even. 2.5 is minus 120 for the over, minus 125 for the under. They only played head to head so far very early in the season back in September. It was a 1-1 draw that Arsenal scored late to tie that match with Martinelli in stoppage time. It was a very even match in terms of, gameplay and stats and everything. Very even XG, all that. So we'll see. I think though that was early in the year before the form really took over. So I do like Arsenal. I agree with you there, but that's kind of where I'm leaning with this one. And I think some of those player props, like you said, are worth sprinkling if you like a goal score or something, because
Yeah,
the numbers are better than you'll get most matches for these clubs.
yeah. I think the EFL Cup has a history of being a really tightly contested, like slow develop Liverpool and Chelsea, but yeah, type game.
Yeah. So we'll head over to the Premier League. No real big head-to-heads there because obviously the big match is in the League Cup. And it actually kicks off Friday this week, which is rare for the Premier League. Usually we don't get a Friday Premier League match. We've got Bournemouth hosting United, and then I'll read off some of these Saturday ones. You tell me if there's anything you like in any of these matches, Scotty. We've got Brighton hosting Liverpool, Fulham hosting Burnley, Everton hosting Chelsea, Leeds hosting Brentford on Saturday. All right. I think Scotty's having a little technical difficulty. So I'm going to kick it over to the Serie A until he can get back in. He's on a work trip and he's in a hotel. So Wi-Fi may be having a little issue. So I'll pick it up from here. I'll go to Serie A. We'll come back to the Premier League when Scotty comes on. So Serie A kicks off with Cagliari hosting Napoli on Friday. This is a match that Napoli should win. The number at minus 165 is not attractive to me. Cagliari is a tough place to play, so I'm not touching that one. The one that is interesting to me also on Friday, there's actually 2 Friday Serie A matches, is the Genoa-Udinese match. Genoa kind of rounding into form a little bit under De Rossi. Obviously, when I say rounding into form, we're talking about a club that's been just above the relegation zone since he's taken over. He's pulled them out of that battle a little bit and into a bit of safety. But they're coming off a win this past weekend. Udinese coming off a loss. I just want to pull up their recent form for you. But I do like Genoa at home, plus 115. They won this past weekend against Verona away 2-0. The weekend before beat Roma 2-1 at home. Played Inter kind of tight the weekend before that in a 2-0 loss, and beat Torino the weekend before that in a 3-0 win. Also at home. Their home form has been really good lately, winning 3 out of 4. They only lost to Napoli when they had a red 3-2 loss. So I like Genoa. I do at plus 115. Not something I would have said earlier in the season, but I think that the money line here at that number at home against Udinese side that is coming off a home loss to Juve and a draw against Atalanta, and then except for a win against Fiorentina, 3 previous back-to-back losses. So I think that's where I'm at on Friday. I definitely like Genoa plus 115, and I'm gonna ride with that. Moving on to Saturday in Serie A, we've got a few matches. We've got Parma hosting Cremonese, Milan hosting Torino, and Juve hosting Sassuolo. Cremonese, we faded them on Monday against Fiorentina. They're just bad. I don't know if I like Parma enough to take them at even money because they haven't won in 3 either, but it's something to consider. Maybe a draw no bet. You could parlay it with somebody else you like. That's around that minus 150, minus 170 number and get a decent number. But I think that is something to keep an eye on because Cremonese are just bad, like I said. Milan, after their disappointing loss, I like them to score goals. I don't know if their team total is really in play at minus 205, maybe as a parlay piece. But got your back, Scotty.
There we go.
There we go. So I just jumped over to all right. So yeah, working through this one. But I had jumped over to Serie A while you were
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I could hear you. I've got you, Scott. All right. So the Milan match, Juve match, numbers 2 juice, not going to go anywhere over there. And you move over to Sunday, it's kind of the same deal. Como Pisa. Como's too big of a favorite. Pisa's not good. Atalanta at home, also a big favorite over Hellas. Not a spot I'm going to even fade Atalanta after their tough loss today against Bayern, just because Verona is not very good. I think we've got Scotty back. All right, Scotty, can you hear me? Now? All right, we'll give him a minute. I'll keep going through the Serie A lines. Bologna, Lazio, Roma, Lecce. Bologna, Lazio is tough because Bologna plays Europa League tomorrow against Roma. Plus 125 at home against the Lazio side, coming off a win against Milan. That's a tough call. And it's hard to really make a decision until you see how they play against Roma tomorrow. If they get a result against Roma, I might like that plus 125 a little bit more, but not sure I want to go there at this moment. Maybe goals in that one, but Lazio is inconsistent when it comes to goal scoring in their matches. So probably a stay away spot for me as well there. Roma, big favorites against Lecce, Fiorentina, Inter. to close out the weekend before we head into the international break. Again, Inter minus 170. I think you have to, if you look to them, you got to look like minus a goal. And it's, I don't
All
know.
right.
You're good. Perfect. I
I'm
just
good
ran
now.
through it. Good. I just ran through Serie A. Went on a little monologue while we were waiting for you to get your technical difficulties worked out. So closing out, the only thing I would consider in that Inter Fiorentina match is maybe Inter minus a goal against Fiorentina, who will be playing on Thursday in the Conference League tomorrow at plus 105, something I might consider. But other than that, not a lot to love in Serie A from my opinion for this week.
Yeah, Syria. I took a quick peek at it earlier today. Didn't inspire a lot of confidence, but I default to you.
Yeah, so let's jump over the Premier League, Scotty, which is where we were going before you had your technical difficulties. So the weekend kicks off with Bournemouth, Man United on Friday. We don't usually get Friday Premier League matches. We get one this week. I don't know if there's anything you like there.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, United, I feel like are on a run, and they're getting plus 115 money line. I don't know.
Yeah.
What am I missing with this Bournemouth team? 9 wins all season. I feel like they've been relatively stagnant lately. I don't see Manchester United dropping points here, so I don't mind taking them on the money line. I know they're on the road, but it just seems like a weird line that they're a plus number. It's one of those ones where I would almost feel better if it
Yeah.
was like a minus 115, minus 120.
The only thing that makes me hesitant is that Bournemouth hasn't lost in a while. They haven't won in a while, but they also haven't
Yeah.
lost. So it's like, do they fight their way to a home draw and you lose the money line at plus 115? I mean, maybe it's worth taking a shot with United kind of rounding in form. Like you said, when you get plus money, you're more willing to take those kind of chances. But Bournemouth haven't lost in 9 straight. So that's the only thing that makes me a little hesitant.
Yeah, I mean, United's the
And
only team that's really taken a stranglehold on this top 4 race in
yeah.
in the Premier League. Chelsea, Villa, Liverpool, all
Mm-hmm.
dropping points left and right to inferior teams. I would love it if United drop points. It's point taken that Bournemouth have a ton of draws, but it just seems like a game that United win and go into the weekend because it's a Friday game. You get those 3 points, you just get to watch the chaos with the other 3 teams dropping points left and right. Brentford may even sneak in here in a little bit. They've been kind of slowly creeping up the table,
Yeah.
so I do like United plus 115. I don't know. It just seems like that's an obvious pick.
Yeah, and it's wild to me to see Bournemouth has less losses than Villa, Liverpool, Chelsea, Brentford, Everton, and Newcastle, who are all ahead of them on the table.
Yeah,
They're just draw machines.
they're like a better version of Udinese from recent years, where they draw a lot, but they're still somehow on the top of the table.
Yeah, top half because they just get a point here, point there kind of thing. Saturday, we have Brighton hosting Liverpool, Fulham hosting Burnley, Everton hosting Chelsea, and Leeds hosting Brentford. Anything you like there? Like is maybe Everton in play on a draw no bet or something at home against the Chelsea side, kind of licking their wounds?
Yeah, maybe. I think Chelsea, Everton under 2.5 even. I don't know. Everton at home feels like a very obvious underplay. I know Chelsea's been getting smoked by PSG over the last 2 weeks, but Everton aren't nearly as capable in attack as PSG. So to me, I don't mind the under 2.5 here. I don't see this being like a 3-4 goal game. Maybe Everton get 2 goals. Maybe it's a 1-1 draw, but certainly not going to be like an entertaining affair.
Okay. What do you think of the Liverpool-Brighton match? Obviously, Liverpool coming off an emphatic win today against Galatasaray. Are they kind of going to be hung over a bit heading into the international break after advancing in Champions League, do you think?
Yeah, dude, I mean, Liverpool find a way to drop points to everybody domestically. They can never hold a lead. They love to just go into this 85th, 90th minute with a 1-goal lead, and then almost like on the clock strikes 12, they give up the equalizer like right in that 90th minute. So I wouldn't trust them, especially on the money line here. Crazy to me that they're favorited more at Brighton than United are favorited at Bournemouth. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But do I trust them to take like an over or an under? Because like they can score 4 goals against Galatasaray like we saw today, or they can struggle to score any goals against like a Wolverhampton or Spurs that have not scored any that have been terrible for the last 6 or 7 games. So I honestly at this point I have to stay away from Liverpool because I just don't know what we're getting with them. It doesn't make any sense. Salah has been a nightmare for the last. Well, I mean, basically all season long, for being honest. The only consistent player has been Soboslai. Ekatike has cooled off immensely, at least domestically in the last 2 months. Verts is coming back from injury. I think once he's more in form, we can maybe get back to seeing a more capable Liverpool attack. But their play style is just so slow and boring that I don't expect them to turn the screw on anybody. So I'm just going to stay away from this one, if we're being honest.
Yeah. You mentioned Brentford earlier. They play the late match Saturday at Leeds. They haven't won in 3 in a row, but Leeds also hasn't been very good. I mean, you get Brentford draw no bet at even money. Do
Yeah,
you think that's in play there at Leeds?
I do. I actually would draw no bet at even money. I think is a no-brainer. Leeds 7 wins all season. At home, sure, they're a little bit more capable, but yeah, Brentford are very much in the mix for at least a Europa spot, if not, potentially sneaking into the top 5. I'm saying a little tongue in cheek, but certainly in contention for Europa or Conference League, which would be huge for that club, especially with all that they've lost over the last season and season and a half. They lost their manager, they lost 2 of their best forwards. Like they've really been trying to rebuild, and to get into a European competition after that would be immense.
Yeah.
So I don't mind a draw no bet here. I mean, maybe they get the win, maybe they get a draw, but I don't think they're going to be losing against the lead side that we all kind of picked for relegation coming into the season, but seems like they're maybe they got a chance of being safe.
Yeah, they've got a pretty good chance of being safe because there's, a couple teams between them in the relegation zone. Before we get to the relegation battle on Sunday, there's a big derby match up in the northeast of England, Newcastle Sunderland. Sunderland won the reverse fixture 1-0 at home. This time we go to St. James Park. Newcastle coming off that loss today, that absolute drubbing by Barcelona, right? Like, how much does that affect their confidence, their fitness coming into this one, in terms of fatigue? And Sunderland's in 13th, Newcastle's in 9th. But if Sunderland win this match, they jump over Newcastle and can claim the double in their first season back in the Premier League. And the number on them is huge in this one. I mean, they are plus 400 on the money line, plus 425 here on DraftKings, which means you could get them double chance, not even needing to win the match, at plus 115. I think that is a place I would look here. They play very contrasting styles in terms of over-unders. Sunderland usually an underside, Newcastle usually an overside. We've seen against big side Sunderland's like a lot of those 1-1, 1-0 type matches. I could see them doing it here up in St. James Park, just getting like a 1-1 and getting out of there or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those games where like the odds are reflecting where the game is being played. And
Yeah.
we've seen St. James Park explode in big matches, in Europe. We've seen it do it domestically. This is a match that all the Newcastle fans have had circled for 9 months. Tickets have probably been impossible to come by, and everybody's going to be showing up. It's probably about 2 o'clock game in England, because I don't think they spring forward yet. They're going to be loaded getting into the stands. I think this is a game where the atmosphere is a difference, and I think that's what the books are reflecting. So I see your point, Coach. Like, I think if this was, you take the emotions out of it, you take the local rivalry out of it. Like, yeah, that's a no-brainer taking Sunderland on a draw no bet or double chance. But man, if you're a Newcastle player and you don't get that extra juice from the crowd on Sunday, then like I don't know when you would. So I think Newcastle win this game just because they're going to have all this crazy energy, especially with fans that are probably a little bit upset about the results from midweek.
Yeah.
And that's an emotional squad, Newcastle, like Bruno Guimaraes and Joelinton, and like these are guys that feed off the crowd. And so I think they'll take it to another level. So I think Newcastle do get a win, but I think it's driven purely by crowd and atmosphere more than anything.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, makes sense. And the lines do reflect that. So we'll see if the lines ring true or not, or if Sunderland can find a way to get a big result in the Premier League. Couple interesting ones to close out the weekend before we get to the international break. We've got Villa hosting West Ham, Villa minus 105 in the money line, West Ham plus 280. And then we've got Spurs plus 135 hosting Nottingham Forest plus 195. These have relegation implications. Not only is Villa playing, obviously, for a top 4 finish, but when we look at the table, I read them both off together instead of going one by one, because you've got Tottenham on 30 points, Forest on 29, West Ham on 29, currently in 18th in the final relegation spot. So I mean, if things go wrong for Spurs here, you get if Forest can go to Tottenham Stadium and get a win, and West Ham can get a result against Villa, Spurs could find themselves in the relegation zone heading into the April international break.
Yeah, I mean them getting a draw against Liverpool in the 90th minute on Sunday is was massive for them because they would have been level with the relegation zone. Um, are they building momentum? Like that's kind of my question right now. Like, yeah, getting a draw at Liverpool, then winning even though you're eliminated against Atletico, is that enough of like a momentum boost? And we've been seeing all the storylines about Igor Tudor almost being certainly on the hot seat, maybe even being potentially replaced after his like 2 week stint in charge. So it seems, um, have the results over the last week been enough to kind of give him a little extra leash going into the international break? It'll be interesting. Like I think this is kind of a big litmus test for them. If they can
Yeah.
kind of continue to get points and chip away and have decent results, regardless of how the play style looks, then I think that's enough for the powers that be at Tottenham to kind of let them see out the season. Because we know in a relegation battle, all it takes is like 2 or 3 good results in a row, and you're usually got enough of a cushion to kind of see out the rest of the season. But they turn around and drop points against a Forest team that's obviously like very much directly in contention with them. I think you see the eject button get pulled, and you got a new manager coming in for Spurs before the end of the month.
Yeah, I think if they lose this match, Tudor, I mean, he's already on the hot seat going into the international break. I think he's done. I think they have to pull the emergency eject button for the second time because I think this will put them in a really, really difficult spot. The reverse fixture was a Forest win back in December 3-0. These are two teams that are really struggling. I mean, when you take out their Champions League win today and the one against Frankfurt a couple weeks ago, I mean, they have not won in 12 straight Premier League matches. They have not won Tottenham. Their last win was December 28th against Crystal Palace, 1-0 on the road. Yeah. And prior to that, they had also lost to Liverpool and Forest. So we're talking about what I just count off 12. So what, like 14 out of 15 Premier League matches they have dropped points in. And then you've got Forest, who very similar, honestly, for seven straight without a win in the Premier League and 8 out of 9 without a win. And then, then you've got a four match losing streak prior to a couple of those wins. So their last win was January 25th away to Brentford. So
here's another wrinkle for Forest, coach. We just talked about Spurs having a big momentum building win at home today. Forest have to go to Maitland tomorrow. They're trailing 1-0.
Yes.
So a very big match where they got to throw everything at. How does that impact things? If they don't get it done on the road, and you're extra 1 day fewer of rest, and you're coming from a slight travel day. Maitland's not that far from England. How does that impact things? So maybe that's a little bit more of an edge for Spurs here.
Tough match, Maitland too. They've been really good in the Europa League. I think that's not going to be easy for them. The only recent wins for Forest were actually in Europa League against Fenerbahce. Those are the only wins since that Brentford win. So, I think that's a great point. So the fatigue is not going to be a factor for Spurs more so than Forest, vice versa. It's going to be about the same. I don't know. I mean, is this a goals game? Do we get goals here? Is it a bit open?
Spurs are usually a goals game. Yeah. I think I know Forest have struggled to score in the league in recent years or recent months. But I do feel like Spurs are good for shipping a goal here and there. And then, I think ultimately, if you believe in Spurs getting some sort of result, there's going to be, something on their side.
Yeah, minus 115 is a pretty solid number on the over, I think, in this one. It's hard for me to pick a side because I can't trust either of them. When you have two teams that haven't won in so long.
Would you say Spurs draw no bet was?
Spurs draw no bet is minus 150.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Can't play that.
Because they're at home, you can't play it. Forest plus 110. It's not even like a double chance is in play here for either side because they're both pretty close. I mean, the draw line's plus 240. I don't like to really sweat draws. But this could be one of those ones where if Spurs gets out with the draw, they're kind of just happy with it because they keep ahead of Forest, but they really need to win. So maybe not happy, but not the end of the world for them. But at home, I think it has to be a win for them.
Yeah.
And then West Ham is West Ham. I mean, Villa's got to play tomorrow as well. Is there a world where West Ham goes to Birmingham and gets a result against Villa?
Man, if you asked me that question like 3 weeks ago, I'd say absolutely not. But Villa 3 losses in a row. You know, haven't won a game in a little over a month. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
West Ham are, you know, they're picking up decent results. I guess I'd say decent in the context of a relegation battle. Like I think they've gotten
Yeah.
6 points in their last 5 matches. 1.1 or yeah, like what's that? 1.2 points per game. That's usually safety. So if you can sustain that over the course of, you know, 10, 15 more matches, um, that's usually good enough to get you out of the relegation zone. So, another game where should be goals. Aston Villa at home, we've talked about a little bit that they've been struggling to score, but like against a West Ham defense, you expect them to get something.
Yeah.
Um, but man, dude, like this number with West Ham right now, it's very tempting with the way that Villa have been playing lately.
The double chance is -130.
Yeah, that's well in play, like 100% in play. And weirdly enough, like obviously West Ham would be happy with a draw. Villa, with the way that Chelsea and Liverpool have been playing, a draw doesn't really kill them here.
Yeah.
Because I firmly believe that the final spot or final 2 spots, if they get 5 in England, is going to come down to May. Because if you look at the matches in May, it's getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Liverpool are playing Chelsea and Villa, and I think maybe in Manchester United in May. I think Villa and Chelsea are playing like they all play each other, and so a lot of the matches leading up between now and May 1st, I think are just about trying to hold serve. So in this case, like, yeah, I think if you're Villa, as disappointing as a draw might be, you would still need a Liverpool and or Chelsea win to draw level with you in that 4th spot. So in a weird way, I think a draw works and suits both teams in this one.
Yeah, and you spoke of West Ham's form, just one loss in their last 6. It was to Liverpool. Otherwise, they've got 9 points in those 6 matches, which for a team fighting relegation is a solid
Mhm.
number to try to pull
Yeah,
themselves and claw their way out
it's
of it.
huge, huge.
So that is something definitely to keep an eye on in this one. Is it the same time or is it slightly no, same time as that Spurs match? So Spurs and Forest won't go into that match knowing anything about um, what the result is with West Ham. They won't know
Yeah.
if West Ham has leapfrogged them, if West Ham can go and get a result kind of thing. So yeah, so that'll be interesting.
And by the way, I mean, because we have international break coming up after this weekend,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, if you're a fan of one of those 3 teams that are in the relegation zone and you see the other 2 teams pick up points and your team drops and you're sitting squarely in the relegation zone going into the international break, that's a tough time. Like that
Yeah.
sucks. You're really going into crunch time the last, 6, 7 weeks of the season where, it's all on the line and you're kind of trying to make up ground.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting. It's not big ones in terms of like title race, top 4, top 5 spots, but as we were going through, I was like, oh, we have some interesting little nuggets in the relegation battle here, and I think that's
Yeah.
where the focus has to be outside of the EFL Cup final.
It's the first time in 3 years that the relegation battle has been kind of interesting because we
Yeah.
finally have teams that have been newly promoted that are going to be sticking around. Like we just said,
Yes.
Leeds and Sunderland going to be sticking around. So that means 2 of the teams that have been in the Premier League for at least the last 3 seasons or so are going to be dropping down. And,
Yeah.
with somebody like Spurs and the size of that club being very much in the thick of it, it makes things very interesting.
Yeah, gets very interesting. Fiorentina's kind of in the same boat in the Serie A. They kind of helped themselves a lot by beating Cremonese on Monday. But it's been kind of those things. Like those are teams that are not like traditional top 4 sides in their league, but they're top 7 sides year after year. And then they're over here fighting relegation when they should never be fighting relegation. So Spurs in even more danger than they are. So if things don't go well for Spurs, yeah, we could be talking about Spurs heading into the relegation zone in the international break with like 8 matches left will be very, very interesting. So anything else you want to mention, Scotty, before we jump off?
No, I'm just happy my Wi-Fi has made it this far.
So we thank everybody for listening. I will try to drop some MLS plays on the YouTube channel probably tomorrow or something if I get a chance. If not, we'll be tweeting them out. And anything Bundesliga that pops up, we'll tweet out or anywhere else in the leagues. But we thank you for listening, dealing with our connectivity issues today. Nick will be back next week. I'm not sure what the show will look like since the international break, but we'll probably have.
Is MLS playing?
I
Feel
got to
like they have
check. I'm not
international
sure if
breaks.
they have the international break, but we'll have some stuff to talk about, I'm sure, with those European, qualification or something. So we thank you for listening. Again, follow us on all socials, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. We're on all of them now. So thanks for listening, and we'll catch you guys soon.